Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to Ask Jackie Gordon, the public speaking answer lady live stream. It happens every Tuesday night right here on LinkedIn and YouTube and Facebook. I'm Jackie Gordon, your host, and this is part 2 of our ongoing 4-part series, Careful, Your Body is Talking. How to use body language to enhance your words and your message. And today's episode, eye contact essentials for engaging your audience online and off. What is wrong with this picture? If you guys want to say something in the chat, like what's wrong with this picture, put it in the chat. But I'm going to tell you, you can't see my eyes. What else is wrong with this picture is my cats have just escaped. So that's fun. They're not supposed to be down here. And yet they are. So we just have to go with it. It's show business, my friends. It's show business. So yes, if your audience is not able to see your eyes, you have a break between you and the audience. There's no human connection. There's no trust. It can be a distraction. The expectations of the audience will not be met because, get out, Butter. Yes, my feline co-stars are in the scene with me, and my mother's trying to get them out. If you shake some food, they'll go away. Just go upstairs and grab their food and shake it, and they will go upstairs. Everybody wants to be in show business, folks. So today we're going to talk about eye contact for people who want to speak to sell, people who are experts, creators, and how to make eye contact effectively online and in person, depending upon how you are. Oh, there they go. Bye. How to make eye contact online if you're presenting online. Okay, now I got to wait for the noise to stop. Hold on. Who wants to see peanut and butter? If you do, say something in the chats. I have a chat overlay, but I'm not sure. There it is. If anybody's out there and wants to say hello to the kitty cats, who are now gone. So eye contact, effective eye contact rather, is essential for people who speak to sell their products or services. And we're going to go into it in depth today to understand what is involved in eye contact. And our agenda is live stream. We're going to talk about what is eye contact. I'm going to talk about how it affects you. We're going to talk about how it affects me. We're going to talk about the downsides, the upsides. I got a mindset shift. I got a mindset shift that helps people be better at making eye contact. I talk about why it's so important for presenters, and I got the strategy, the system, the technique for making eye contact like a pro, both offline and online. And then we are going to talk about a few eye contact don'ts and the ways to practice getting better at it. I have a new system for switching slides today, so I'm kind of excited about that because this restream thing seemed to have a gap. Now there's less of a gap, or a lag rather, when we're going from slide to slide. So what is it? What's eye contact? What is it? Hey, it's very simple. Eye contact is looking into each other's eyes. Woo-hoo-hoo. Not to make it so spooky. Woo-hoo. When you look directly into someone's eyes, someone's looking directly into your eyes. It can be under any circumstance. That is what eye contact is. And people have varying relationships with it. Some people find it very easy. Other people find it hard. So what is your relationship? I mean, there can be anything from, I love it, I love looking in people's eyes, to, I hate it, oh my God, it's so terrifying, and anything in between. If you are out there in the chat and you want to share what it is, how you feel about it. Last week, I couldn't see the chat, so I'm not really sure what's going on. So if you're out there and you want to make a comment, you have to do so in the chat or in the comment section if you're on LinkedIn. And it should come up on the screen. And if it doesn't, That's just the way technology doesn't work sometimes. But if you are out there and you're listening, say hi so I know that you can actually, whether or not the chat is actually working. And if it isn't working again this week, someone's going to have to pay. Now, I'm going to have to reach out to the people who built this software and find out what's the problem. So each of you is going to have like your own like visceral reaction to eye contact, whether it's something you really enjoy or something that you really dislike or anything in between, but you know how you feel about it. And so you should be able to figure out what you need to do to be better at it, whether or not it's being willing to do it at all or just getting better at it in terms of resting your eyes on people and making a longer eye contact with people, just being more intentional with it. You know what your issue is. And of course, I know what mine is. Slide change. Woohoo! So, as I've said in earlier live streams, I was the shy kid. I didn't want to look in anybody's eyes. I would hide my face in my mother's skirt when people talked to me when I was a little girl. I didn't want to walk into school on the first day of school. I stood in the hallway and I cried because I was really shy. Now, the fact that I'm sitting here today says that there may have been a ham inside. I think there was, but when I was a kid, it was super confronting. I hated not knowing what was happening, what was going to happen. Like if people walked up to me and said something, I was like, I don't know. I always thought it was going to like sting. But I guess somehow along the line, I got over it. You also growing up in New York City, you also get a lot of, if you stared at people, you get a lot of, what the hell are you looking at? What are you looking at? So you sort of learn not to do that. But I grew up and I became more comfortable and I decided that I didn't want to be the shy kid. Even when I was first studying singing, I remember going to my first singing lesson and the singing teacher said, what do you want to do? Why do you want to be a singer? And I was like, I answered some sort of mamby-pamby mumbly answer that did not sound strong, but I stuck with what I wanted to do, which was to be a singer. And I took voice lessons and I took, what's that thing that was terrible? I was terrible at it. Sight singing lessons, and I had a voice coach. And eventually, the first time I got up to sing, I cried in front of everybody that I knew because I did that at my mother's 50th birthday party. And then it was kind of like a spell was broken because I knew I'd cry the first time I did it. But then subsequently, it became easier and easier. And I moved to Australia and I just, as soon as I got to Australia, anytime I had an opportunity to sing, even though we were on a holiday, I would just start singing just to get myself in the groove, just to have that experience. The one thing about any fear attached to public speaking is that you have to feel what it feels like. You have to be willing to feel that icky feeling in order to be able to let it pass. Maybe for some people it doesn't pass, but for me, eventually it passed. And I became a singer and a producer and an event organizer. And I was hired by different companies to do shows and I became a speaker. And all of these things came because I was willing to feel the feeling and do it anyway. But then I went to Toastmasters, which was interesting to go after having all this experience, standing on stages, getting, standing ovations and adulations and awards. And that was interesting because the whole experience of having eye contact from the stage is very different than having eye contact in a more intimate setting, which is like in a Toastmaster meeting, which if you haven't never been to one, is a smaller group. I'm a member of one of the biggest, well, at the time, it was one of the biggest Toastmaster clubs in New York City, the most reputable one called SEC Rough Riders. And we had between, 20 to 50 people in a meeting, and it was in a boardroom, and it was a much closer experience. And you had to get used to that sort of eye contact. That's intimate. You're looking at people that you don't know initially because you're new to the club, and you have to make eye contact. And there's a whole strategy to that, which is very different than standing on stage. Because if you're looking at a room full of several hundred people or 1,000 people, it's very different than looking at in a room full of 20 people. So, but it is an excellent, excellent place to practice. So I do suggest that. If you have an issue, people are there. Hi, Nancy. Hi, Emma. Oh, I got people in the house. I'm excited. I'm glad you guys chimed in because I have no idea if anybody's out there listening to me, but it's good to see you. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Okay, so let's move on to the next stage. So we have the downsides, which are usually considered to be more than the upsides of eye contact for people who have a fear of eye contact. So I'm going to hit the downsides first, and then I'm going to move on to the upsides. So once we slayed, babies are excellent at eye contact. You walk up to a baby and you look, go, and look at it in the stroller, and that baby is like, oh my God, I love you. Look at me. Aren't I fabulous? You know, the way the babies are just like, so like, will you welcome anyone? But then their mothers say, then they get the treatment. Don't stare. Don't look. Stop looking at people. It's not safe. It's not safe. It's not safe. And they get all these, and other kids are mean. Oh my God, you look at a kid and a kid looks and sticks his tongue out at you, and then you're like, ah. So we have this experience of being completely willing and open to eye contact, and then over the time, the people shut us down, and then we become much more fearful of it. It becomes much more confronting. It becomes becomes very dangerous. Danger. So we avoid it. We don't do it unless we feel safe. A lot of us are comfortable having eye contact with people we know, but we have varying degrees of comfort with strangers. And there's some people who have something called, I'm going to try and pronounce it, folks. Oh, that's the other thing that it triggers emotions. You know, it makes you feel vulnerable, makes you feel unsafe. You know, if you look at someone in the eye and they don't look back at you, or they, you know, throw you shade. I had this person on the subway who's looked fantastic. I'm trying to think of the politically correct word. I looked at someone who looked really great on the subway, and they were really put off by it. And they came for me and they did this thing to me, and I just smiled. I gave them this gigantic smile, and then they backed away. But, you know, it's very confronting for people. And if you look people in the eye, especially on the subway, you might be up for a beatdown, especially in New York City, because we're not that friendly. So it triggers all sorts of emotions and makes people feel scared, makes people feel vulnerable, makes people feel unsafe. We also have the issue with someone staring at you. Creepy much? You know, when someone looks like that, you're kind of like, ugh. You don't want somebody looking at you like that. And who's had a conversation with a person who doesn't look you in the eye? I mean, imagine you're on a stage or, you know, in front of a room full of people, and you're unwilling to look the audience in the eye. It would be very off-putting for the audience. You also don't want to stare at them like a serial killer, but there's got to be a balance. You got to find a balance. But there are people who have, this is the word I was worried about, scopophobia, fear of being stared at. Should have been the word at in that slide, but fear of being stared down, stared at, stared into. Maybe people, you know, the Shakespeare said the eyes are the window to the soul. Perhaps there are people who think you can see inside them when you dead-eye them. So it is very confronting for people, and they don't like it. But on the upside, that's interesting. That slides out of water. So what happened there? Eye contact affects everything. It affects your relationships. It affects your love, the love in your life, your family, your ability to do business, to do sales. Everything is affected by eye contact. And slide was out of the order because I wanted this slide to be up. The upside of eye contact, especially for speakers, is that you can feel empowered, you can make a connection with your audience, and you can feel confidence. So it's really important that speakers ace being able to make eye contact with their audience, because every person who is standing on a stage wants something from their audience, and the audience wants something from them. So you need to bridge that gap between the two by being able to look at each other and come as an authority figure. I'm going to talk more about that in a second. My friend Michael Ellsberg wrote this book called The Power of Eye Contact, because there really wasn't a book that went delving into that. And in his book, if you read it, and I suggest you do, because if you have any issues with eye contact, this is really going to clear them up for you. It's the secret to how to have successful relationships with people in your life, basically in general, depending not just from the stage, but intimate relationships to being able to stand on a stage in front of thousands of people, or to have a relationship with your audience if you are a content creator or an expert. The ability to look your audience in the eye makes you very powerful for a number of reasons. So one of the things that I use for people who find it confronting is that I change the mindset on it. And that is that a lot of people, when they are, especially live, now the cool thing about presenting online is that you can kind of hide behind this little camera, because, it's just me. And sometimes the cats who come and upstage me, but it's really just me in this room. So it's kind of a much more intimate experience speaking online through this camera than it is to stand in front of a room of real people. Can be very, very confronting because they're all looking back at you. Now, this is the way that this live stream is set up. I can't see anybody. So essentially, except for you guys who are waving from the chat, I don't really have an audience, but you are often, or I am often, presenting on a Zoom call where I can actually see the faces of the people, which is good, except that sometimes they're distracting because you find yourself not looking at the camera. You're actually just trying to talk to people. You're trying to look them in the eye, which is not good form for online speaking, but it's a lot less confronting than standing in front of a room full of people or on stage where they're all looking at you, because we think when people are looking at us, they're thinking bad thoughts. I don't know too many people who stand up in front of an audience and think, these people think I'm a genius. They love me. I'm sure at some point celebrities get that experience, but there's a ton of celebrities like Jennifer Lawrence and Barbara Streisand and Rihanna and Andrea Bocelli and more who have a terrible fear of going on stage, and they actually feel very sick before they do it, but they do it because what they have to say is more important than how they feel. And that's the thing that I tell speakers as well. If you are speaking to sell your product or your services, that is what's important. Delivering the information that your audience wants to hear, delivering your message is way more important than how you feel. So you have to kind of focus your attention on delivering the gift of your message rather than focusing your attention on how the audience is making you feel. Because if you look at them like they're an audience like your audience is actually a mirror and you're looking into their faces, and we are reading into their faces because we are antagonistic beings. We are self-antagonistic beings who try to undermine ourselves. We often look and think, oh, that person hates me. That person thinks I'm boring. That person thinks I'm an imposter. All the things that we think that we're reading into the faces of our audience, when actually the audience wants you to win. The audience is so happy not to be in your place. They're so happy not to be on that stage delivering whatever, having to speak in front of an audience of people. They're there because they don't want you to waste their time. So they're gunning for you to say something that is valuable to them in hopefully an entertaining manner, so that they are not bored and they get this valuable message that they can go away with and change their lives in a small way or in a big way. 70% of the population has a fear of public speaking. So that means that 70% of your audience is sitting there going, thank God it's not me. Thank God it's not me. So if you reframe and shift your attention from thinking about how the audience thinks about you to thinking, how can I be of service to them? And how can I get this information to them in a way that they can use it? That's going to help you bridge that gap and forget about what they think about you. It's all about their experience. Everything is for the audience. You want to deliver your gift. So you focus your attention on that and not on whether or not and how they feel about you, because it doesn't matter. Your message has to supersede your own feelings. And there are ways to deal with that, the ickiness. But for right now, we're just talking about eye contact. In another live stream, I will talk about, actually, I think I even talked about it in an earlier live stream, about how to deal with your nervousness. But the eye contact is like the end point for that kind of nervousness, because you have to be willing to look your audience in the eye, and that can stir stuff up. But remember, it is not the bad thoughts that you're thinking are not true. Your audience wants you to win. They want you to be valuable. They want you to deliver a message that is valuable to them. And they want you to be funny. They want you to be entertaining as well. So pack up that gift and bring it. So if you have the experience of feeling icky, it's a trigger. It's a trigger that says shift your attention. So the eyes, as I've been saying, are essential if you want to speak to sell your products or services to any audience, because they establish your authority. The ability to make your eye contact establishes your authority with your audience. It creates trust. It also conveys trustworthiness. It gives you an opportunity to connect and bond with your audience. You can start a conversation with them. It helps your audience pay attention, and it helps you focus and pace yourself. And it helps you to read the audience, being willing to look at them in the face, and it helps build your confidence. And I'm going to attack these. I'm going to address these one by one. So when you stand in front of an audience and you look them in the eye, you're showing them that you're confident, that you're powerful. Oh, I've got to change the slide. Excuse me, kids. Where is my slide person? Oh, there she is. It establishes your authority. So you are there to lead them. No one stands on a stage without being the leader in some capacity. So you want to be there to lead them. You want to show your confidence, your compassion, that you are actually leading them. The idea, I love this picture. I want to go out with that guy. I think he might be AI. No, I think he's real. He creates trust. They see you, when you're looking at them in the eye, they see you as trustworthy, and they think that they can trust you. So it conveys your trustworthiness, and it gives them the opportunity to make them trust you, and you can trust them. It shows that you are there for them. Next slide. It also creates a connection. So it's a bond with the audience. It says, I see you. You're important to me. You feel seen. Let's see. I see you. That gesture. That's what it says. When I'm looking at you in your eye, you get this experience that you're of being seen. A lot of times people think of audiences as like a passive thing. They're these people and they're sitting in their seats and they're just waiting for you to say something. But the eye contact builds this bridge and says that I see you. And you want to build ways with your audience in general that make them feel like they're part of the experience. And eye contact is the first step to that experience. In terms of creating a conversation, now if you watch, who in the audience watches Reels and Facebook stories and Facebook Reels and Instagram Reels and TikToks and TikToks and all of those things. When you see people presenting often on those platforms, it's just them and you, and they speak to you like it's just you. You're the only person in the room. When you make eye contact from the good for you, Emma. Me too. I love them. The dopamine hits. Oh, keep them coming. Anyway, so when you listen to them, because there's really nobody, they're talking to you, but you're not talking back unless you are talking back. It's like a conversation. When I'm standing on a stage, it's the same thing. When I rest my eyes on one person and talk to them, it's as if I'm talking and creating this intimate conversation. When other people around the room see me looking at one person in the eye, they put themselves in the space of that person, and they feel like they're having an intimate conversation. Who remembers President Bill Clinton? Anybody? He was great at when he spoke, he made it feel like you were the only person in the room. And that's sort of the idea behind making really good eye contact, because it creates this experience of intimacy where you're talking to just, who is he? Look him up, Google him. Of creating this intimacy that makes you feel like you're the only person in the room. And it makes every person feel, even if they're not being looked at, that they're part of this intimate conversation. So the other thing that the eye contact does is it helps your audience pay attention. So If you are a speaker and you are hiding behind your notes, or you're looking up at the ceiling, or you're looking over their heads, or there's many ways of doing eye contact wrong, the audience is not bonding with you. You don't see them, so they're going to start doing whatever they want. No one's paying attention to me, so I'm going to, eat a candy bar or get on my phone or do the things that people do when they don't feel a connection. But when you pay attention to them, that forces them to pay attention to you. And what it also helps with is people who are being distracting in the audience. So you might have someone there who's like rustling a bag of chips. Hopefully not, unless it's a chip convention. The people who are making noise and everyone starts looking over at them. What you do with your eye contact is you stop and you stare at the person who might be talking while you're talking or making noise. And you don't have to say anything, just dead eye them. They're going to stop because now you're creating an intimate conversation with them and you're telling them to, and it works. Also with hecklers, if people are actually yelling at you, talking to you, yelling out stuff at you when you're on stage, it's harder on a Zoom meeting. You just mute them. When you can't mute those people, just stop and dead eye them. And they will either stop or the audience is going to make them stop. That's been my experience. It's very powerful. Eye contact is very powerful. The other thing that eye contact does is it helps you focus. So when you are looking at the people who are in your audience and you put your eyes on them, you're not looking at something that's going on in the back of the room or a painting or, twiddling your thumbs, looking at the ceiling and losing your focus on what you're supposed to be saying. If there's any sort of distractions in the room, by paying attention to them, you get to pace yourself. You can put your eyes on someone and breathe. Slow down, take your time, pause. Eye contact breeds less distraction because you're also kind of making a promise. Your eyes are making a promise to your audience that I am going to deliver this thing to you and I'm here for you and I'm doing it, as opposed to like the eye wandering person. So those, and the other very important point, switch slide, is reading the room. Reading the room is essential for powerful speakers or speakers who want to appear powerful, because if you, as my own experience has been, when I talk, people tend to listen. I like to see that they're listening to me. I like to look at their faces and see them kind of riveted or leaning in, paying attention. But if you are speaking and you see that the room, because you're looking at their faces, that people are being distracted or they're nodding out or they're looking at their phones on the sly or they're eating candy or they're trying to do an Irish goodbye and walk out, you know that you've lost the room. You've lost the room, or you've lost some people in the room, and that you're going to have to do something different. You're going to have to pivot in order to get their attention back. So having that reading the room ability from looking at your listeners is very important to speakers, so that you can gauge how you're doing and whether or not you have to do something different to hold their attention. And the last power move of this is that it's kind of a fake it till you make it. If you can survive eye contact and do it well with your audience, even if you don't have a ton of experience, you will be seen as more competent. You will appear to know what you're doing. That is a great fake it till you make it technique, because eventually when you have more experience and you've caught up with yourself and you are an authority, that practice, that ability to pretend, let's say, will give you that kind of oomph that you need in order to feel solid and competent as a speaker. So fake it till you make it, folks. Project that confidence. Look them in the eye, because that's what it appears to them, that you are an authority, that you are competent, that you know what you're talking about. Hopefully, this all goes in a nice little package of you actually knowing what you're talking about. I say fake it till you make it, but I don't mean get up and say something that is completely useless to your audience and look like you mean it. because you could do that. There's a great video, and I wish I'd brought it into this to this live stream. There's a video of a guy who did an experiment of talking with saying nothing. I mean, he was talking the entire time. I think he was wearing like fake glasses. It's somewhere, it's like a TED Talk. I think it's even a TED Talk, where he actually strung together a bunch of words that meant nothing, but they sounded really intelligent. And he looked like a good speaker. So you could get away with that, but I don't suggest it unless you're making a point like he did, which is that you could say absolutely nothing and people are still going to listen to you because you appear to be competent. Say something valuable. Don't say useless things unless you are trying to make a point. That's my theory according to Jackie Gordon. So how do we do this? What's the strategy for delivering eye contact like a professional? I forget the guy's name because I should have it here, but there is a particular person who is an expert on eye contact who developed this strategy, and I should have put his name in, and that would have been really cool of me, but I didn't. But a lot of people use so-and-so, what's his name's strategy. Sorry to disrespect him by not bringing in his name, but I can't remember everything. So when you are live, I'm going to split this up into two sections. One is eye contact when you are live in the room with the real humans, and then eye contact when you are alone in the room or on a webinar or a Zoom with the people on the screen. I like to call them the screen people. So this strategy is what I had to learn in Toastmasters, because when I got there, I didn't really know this sort of more intimate strategy, and this is what speakers do. So what they do is they focus on one person, because as I said, when you focus on one person, that's everyone. Everyone in the room has the same experience if you focus on one person and speak to them. And you look into their eyes, because we got to make the eye contact, but only for 4 to 5 seconds max. You don't want to overstay your welcome when you're giving your eye contact, because it can get creepy. People have a tolerance for being looked in the eye, and you don't want to overstay your welcome, because everybody has their own relationship with eye contact. So you don't want to, look in the eye of somebody who's like, it burns. Maybe they don't like it. So you kind of 4 to 5 seconds is the agreed time that everyone has the capacity to be able to be looked at for that amount of time. Then once you've looked at that person for your 4 to 5 seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you move to a different section of the room, not to the person next to them, and you look at that person. You pick a person in that part of the room and you look at them for 4 to 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you go to the other side of the room. So you want it in your mind, and this could be good while you're getting ready to go on stage, when you're checking out the room if you're going into a live event. Always a good idea to get there early so you know where you're speaking. You can see how the room is broken up, and then you can decide if there's people up there, you want to put your eyes up there. You want people over there, you want to put your eyes. So you want to divide the room into sections and randomly or seemingly randomly look around the room and land your eyes on people around the rooms. That way, everybody gets this experience of being looked at. Everyone gets this experience of eye contact. Every section of the room gets the experience. Use the space and also move your body. If you could be standing at a podium for anybody who doesn't know what it is that usually a wooden structure that people stand behind. I don't encourage people to stand behind a podium. It's better when you're bringing your whole body out and speak before people, but sometimes you could be on video. So a lot of times people are recording you, so you're stuck in one place. Maybe you've got a TED Talk, you got to stay on the circle, but you don't have to stay like this on the circle. You can move your body, look over here, talk to the person down here, talk to the person over there. Just move around, because when you move, the audience also moves. So that helps them to feel like they're being part of the experience, and it also gets them to move around, because sitting still is really boring for an audience. So anytime you can get them to shift and move is good, because it's just better to move and not be like a statue. So move your eyes, move around, and you want to make sure you make your smooth transitions between the people. So you don't want to be like, and you want to look like crazy, you want to look like a rabbit. Is that a rabbit? I don't know. Some sort of animal. It's janky. It's a janky, whatever janky, a janky rabbit. And if you are speaking from notes, and sometimes you have to, you want to lift your head at the end of each sentence and then go back down and read, and then lift your head at the and then focus your attention as you're finishing your sentence on someone's face. Finish your sentence on someone's face. And the other tip is that when you are doing storytelling, like telling a story maybe about a mother and a daughter, just like me and my mother, where she might have said, Jackie, don't look at strangers on the train. Why not, mommy? You want them to have eye contact too. I'm looking down because I'm the mommy. I'm looking up because I'm the little girl. You want your characters in your stories to make eye contact. If someone's standing over there and then the other person standing over there, you want them to, because that's how it looks more realistic. Whereas if I'm saying, Jackie, don't look at strangers on the subway, and I'm like, but mommy, why? It looks weird, doesn't it? If I'm talking to the camera, I'm talking to the audience, and I'm not actually talking to my mother. Why are you saying that to me, mommy? Because people are mean. Anyway, so that's how professionals make eye contact live. The situation completely changes when you are on the internet. When you are on the internet, first of all, it's all about setting up the game so you can win. You want to give your eye contact to your actual eyes. So you've got to make sure that your camera, I'm going to move my camera, which you can see now, is at eye level, so that when I'm looking in the camera, are looking you in the eye. It's really, I find it's kind of weird because if I move over here, it looks like I'm looking you in the eye more, or more centered to the back of the room. I don't know, but you just want to test. And this is what you do: is before you go on to your webinar, before you go on to your Zoom, before you're presenting, test, make sure that you're making eye contact with the camera. What I do is I write a little note and stick it on the camera. It says, eyes here, Jackie, because you can get really lost, especially if you've got an audience looking into their eyes. Now, glancing into their eyes is not a bad thing. Glancing, looking away from your camera for a minute. But this connection, me looking into this camera, is me having eye contact with you on an intimate level. So if I look away for long periods of time, it's going to look like I'm not making a connection with the audience. Does that make sense? Yeah. See, here I am. So how you achieve this is, because it's not natural. Takes a lot of practice, because believe me, I've certainly been presenting, and then there's someone, and I'm talking, someone asks me a question, and I start to be like, oh, I'm going to answer your question over here. Because it's natural. We as human beings want to look in each other's faces, and when we see a face online, we do that. What can help is to block out the faces. I didn't put this in my list, but I think I'm going to add it later. You could block out the faces online while you're presenting so that you're not distracted. Also, you want to shut down stuff on your computer. Like, it's not cool to be like giving a speech or a presentation or a workshop, and then also checking out what's going on Facebook on the screen over there, or watching your Instagram. Not cool. So you don't want to have those things. Shut it down. And you need to look in the faces of your audience still, even if you're doing a webinar or a Zoom, and you have live bodies, which I don't have. I can't see your faces. Wave if you're still out there. But in this situation, I can't see your faces, but when I'm giving a workshop, I can see faces. When I'm holding an accountability meeting, I can see faces. And it's important for me to look at those faces, glance at those faces, to be able to read their faces, just like I would be doing if I were live, because they could also be falling asleep. I mean, it's much more isolating to be an audience and a member in a webinar or a Zoom call than it is to be in a room full of people. I so much prefer presenting live, because there I'm making so much more of a connection with the audience. The audience is connected to each other. They can do paired sharing. They can, it's like the vibe is completely different, but it's not our reality. Our reality is that things are moving more and more online, and we have to get used to this. So remember to read the room. And when you're presenting, like today I'm presenting with slides, you have to be able to not let the slides be the thing that you're staring at. Now, if I was staring at the slides right now, my eyes would be over here. I actually have notes for the slideshow on both sides of my camera so that I can quickly glance over and make sure that I'm staying in time and organized for this presentation, because I've only got an hour and I don't want to appear like I don't know what I'm talking about. And so I have an outline on both sides, because if I don't, in this particular, depending upon the software that you're using, if I have, there's notes that come with it, but it's for some reason, this note thing, I have a choice of the chat where I can see your comments or the notes. So you got to like figure out, you definitely don't want to go in cold. You got to figure out what's going on with your streaming software and your screen, and make sure that you can actually present looking like you're talking to the audience as opposed to looking at the slides the whole time. So you want to sit up straight. I actually, little did you know that I'm sitting on a pile of things, because in this small screen, I have to make sure that my hands and my upper body are visual. Otherwise, I just look like a bobbing head, and I'm much less interesting as a bobbing head. So I push myself up in the seat. I have things that I'm sitting on. I'm like I've got a booster seat. I got a booster seat, so I can put my hands in the camera, get the gestures moving, because I talk a lot with my hands, and I use them for props. And it makes it more, you're going to find out, I think is it in 2 weeks, I'm doing the hand gestures and face and the rest of the body language, and you're going to find out how important hand gestures are. So I want you to see my hands, so I keep myself up, and I also want you to see my face. I think you should also try and work the camera. Like sometimes you can whisper into the camera. It creates more intimacy. You can use it to change your voice. So not to say, I mean, you change your voice and speak with a different voice. That's not what I mean. But also to change your volume. Like if you're whispering, if you're going to yell, move away from the camera. But all of that is working the camera so that you're creating more of an experience for the people who are listening to you, especially if they're not in the webinar with you. This is the choice I made. And you want to make sure that when you're asking questions and you are in a webinar situation where people are listening to you, that you are visibly listening. You're not like the psychiatrist who's like who's like doing a Sudoku while he's supposed to be listening to this person who's pouring their heart to them. So when you're asking questions in a Q&A at the end of your webinar or whatever you're asking them, make sure that when there are people answering you, that your eyes are on the camera so they feel as if you are talking actually to them. And those are the tips for how to use the camera and use eye contact when you are online. If anybody has anything else that they like to do while they're online that I left out of this, send it to me and I'll add it. I'm going to add it. So next we have, that is not how you do it. So, I started this, I just started off awkwardly with this eye mask. That's not how you do it, baby. Unless you're making a point, do not peekaboo or cover your eyes or hide from your audience, because it's not going to go over very well. But if you're making a point, I did start a speech once where with my back to the audience, where I talked about eye contact. Today I used a mask. So it may be part of your point and then it works, but if it isn't, don't cover your face, don't cover your eyes, because you're going to break the connection with your audience. And here are some other things that we don't want you to do when you are live or online. So the live ones there are people who talk like this and try and talk to the entire room, and they're sweeping their head and moving. They're talking to nobody. Essentially, that's talking to nobody. So don't sweep and scan the room. Do not hide behind your notes. So some people like to talk like this so they don't have to actually make any eye contact because they don't want to. They want to hide from the audience. That's not cool. Don't hide. Another thing that people do is that, especially if it's not like a tiered room, is they talk to the back of the room. So instead of the sting of looking in people's eyes, they are looking overhead. They're talking to nobody really, because they're literally the people who are sitting in the audience are seeing their eyes, but they're actually not connecting with them because these people are not looking at you. So don't talk to the tops of people's heads as a way to keep yourself safe. And bouncing. You don't want to be like bouncing your head. This is a much more speedy thing. Some people fidget. You don't want to bounce around. You want to keep your head, as I said, 4 to 5 seconds, one person, move to the next person, move over here to that person. Keep that head from, also a bouncing head, kind of distracting. And now we'll go to online. A thing that happens to people, strangely enough, is the narcissus effect. I think I spelled that properly. Some people present and they are so obsessed with what they look like or worried about what they look like that they sit and they look at themselves. This is what it looks like if I'm actually not talking to you and I'm actually just talking and watching my own reflection. So now we're talking to the side of my face. That is not cool. So don't do that. Don't be like Narcissus. I was married to a man who could not stop looking in mirrors. Is that Narcissus? I used to think he was the picture of Dorian Gray. He did not meet a mirror that he did not like. He would just be like looking at himself in the mirror. I have a very bad relationship with mirrors because I have PTSD from the times when my husband would just look at himself in the mirror and he would be stuck in the mirror. I mean, I'm talking 20 minutes at minimum, an hour, just looking at himself. So don't look at yourself. It's very off-putting for other people. Also looking down. If I'm looking down while I'm talking to you, reading down, you could, if you have to, obviously you have a screen, you can put your notes on a screen, but reading off a sheet of paper is not really going to work because now you can't see my eyes. Can't see my eyes, so don't do that. Also fidgeting, moving around a lot when you're talking. Some people have nervous tics. They're moving, they're jinking around. Maybe they're not looking at anybody. They're just fidgeting. Don't do that. And another thing is dead eyeing the camera. So if I say just like this and just looked at you all, I look a little crazy to just be talking to the camera without actually moving any other part of my face. Don't dead eye the audience. It just looks weird. And the other last thing, oops, we'll change it because it's very important. In some countries, oh, what happened to my slide? That's what happens. This is the lose the connection both ways. If you do those things, I forgot I had this slide. You don't want to lose the connection. Doing the eye contact don'ts causes you to lose your connection. But what I was really going to say, so you want to make sure that you follow the instructions that I gave for how to make professional eye contact when you're online. And also, in general, you want to be culturally aware of how people value eye contact in their country. There are some Asian countries where looking people in the eye is offensive. So if you are going to speak in other countries, you have to adjust your eye contact for your audience. You don't want to freak people out because Americans value eye contacts where maybe in another country, they don't value it and they just get scared or they don't like it. It makes them uncomfortable. So you want to make sure that you are appropriate to your audience. Otherwise, they ain't gonna pay no attention to you. So my pro tip is practice. But how? How are you gonna practice eye contact? You can practice eye contact anywhere. As long as there are humans around you that you can catch their eye, not for a long time, you can practice eye contact. I have tried it on the subway. It can be a little off-putting. Is anybody out there afraid to make eye contact anywhere in public? Raise your hand or say, hey, me. Look at people on the subway. Yes, they don't like it. Some people like it. As long as you have like a relaxed face and a little bit of a smile, you can get away with maybe not 4 to 5 seconds, but you can get away with a second. And if you have a discomfort with it, it's really good practice. Just look at them. They flinch, you look away. Look at somebody else, they flinch. Somebody comes after you and tries to kill you. Don't look them in the eye. I wouldn't engage the loonies on the train or people who might seem mentally unstable. Could get yourself in trouble, but you could practice. You know when people, you look them in the eye, you smile, they smile back. It works. You're walking down the street, look people in the eye. I start conversations with people on the street. I look them in the eye. You can practice this anywhere. But the best place to practice for people who are speaking live in front of an audience is in front of a live audience. because that's where you're going to get that experience that you may be trying to avoid or you want to get better at. So find places where people will be listening to you. You could join a reading group. You could be speaking at a Toastmasters meeting. You could go to your local, what do they have, those councils? They're not council, what do we call them here in New York City? And like there's like places where you can get up and speak where there's issues in your neighborhood. You can go to town meetings, town halls. You want to, when you're talking to people in those sort of situations, any of those sort of situations, practice your eye contact. Anywhere that you can get people to in front of them, you could join an improv group. Practice your eye contact. Another way is to use a mirror. It's to practice, so you have a presentation and you look at yourself. This is the time when narcissists pays. So you want to look at yourself in the mirror and practice your eye contact. What are your eyes doing? Practice holding, make believe there's an audience there in the mirror, and it's a big audience. So you're going to move your eyes around the room and spend 4 to 5 seconds here and then spend 4 to 5 seconds there. So you can use a mirror to practice this. Another thing to do, especially if you're, sorry, these things don't move as quickly as I'd like, is to videotape yourself. So if you are doing you could just be presenting, I can speak English. A lot of times when you are a creator or you're speaking to sell, you're actually shooting videos of yourself. You could be doing a selfie video. You could be doing a product video. You can practice your eye contact in your own videos, in your own reels. See how people are on, they're on TikTok. They're talking directly into the camera. They're talking to their audience. They're making funny jokes, or they're talking about a product, or they're doing a reaction video. Whatever you're doing, whatever's going to sell your product or service, make sure you record it. So that way you can see how you're doing with your eye contact back. You can find out whether you're afraid. I think that people are much more brave when there's nobody else in the room, but still you may be doing weird things. And by videotaping yourself and looking back, you will have a record of it. Especially, did it move? If you are actually doing some sort of demonstration or a webinar, or maybe you're getting paid to do a workshop, or you're doing a live stream like me, record it. This particular live stream, my live stream, is always recorded so I can look back and see how my eye contact was. Was I looking in the camera? I know I sometimes wander my eyes off too. I mean, no one's perfect, right? But yeah, you can perfect or get better at it by recording yourself, looking back, seeing what you like, seeing what you didn't like, and then changing it for the next time you go around. That is my tips on how to practice. So the recap of this live stream, because it's now 6:53, is we talked about what's eye contact. We talked about how confronting it is for people. I told you about my experience and, the shy kid to the eye contact superstar. Not really, but I talked, usually when people are hearing about eye contact, they have this feeling of their own relationship to it. So we talked about your story. I talked about the downsides of eye contact, how we were really good at it and then they beat it out of us. And then the upsides, because it makes you look more confident and a leader. And I told the tip was to not think of your audience as a mirror, think of yourself as a giver of gifts and shift your attention, because if you're thinking about what your audience is thinking about you, that means your attention's in the wrong place. I went over a list of how it is a boon for presenters, and then we talked about how to look like a pro when you're doing it, online, offline. We went over some eye contacts, don't do these, and also I went over how to practice. That is, I have another slide. I have not another slide, but I've got this thing. I'm going to try and make a smooth transition. As you may have noticed, I did not use any videos in the live stream this week because it did not work out that smoothly in the last two. So I'm gonna work on it, but I haven't won this. I haven't won this part. So, but I do have 2 more live streams coming up that go with this series of careful, your body is talking. And the next one's going to be about acing your face. And now that we're talking about eye contact, we're going to talk about how to use your face and your face. How are you going to use your face and your ears? No, you're going to use your facial expressions and your eyes to add humor and emotion to what you're saying, to your message, so that people will pay attention to you longer, because you're not sitting there deadpan looking at them and talking to them and putting them to sleep. So the next one we're going to talk about I-tainment. Okay, I made up that word just now, but how to use your face to make your words come alive. And then the number 4 is going to be talking about hands and the rest of your body and using to captivate your audience. So I hope you're back for those 2, because I'll be here next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Does anyone out there have any questions for me or any comments about what we've just talked about? Tell me now. I'm here. Let me go back to my slideshow. I have been able to see comments in the stream, so that's different. That's better. Things have improved over last week. I don't know what happened last week. Technology. I'm going to be here. I can be here for another 5 minutes, or I can sign off, friends. So if you can even ask me questions about Oh, thank you, Nancy. We'll see you. I'll see you next time. Actually, I have to come see you in real life, so I have to organize that as well to get my cat toys. So I will be back in touch about that. And if anybody else has any questions or comments, I'm here. I can answer questions about cooking. I can answer questions about cats. I can answer questions about. I have a lot of things. This week I was. Stephen, my friend Stephen, was helping me find a gas leak. So I can answer questions about how to find a gas leak in your house, where you have to punch holes in the ceiling every 10 feet to find where the pipes meet and then test them for a gas leak. We did find the gas leak and the plumber came and fixed it. So yay! So I can talk about that, which is not that great. Oh, I can talk about my birthday. I just had a birthday yesterday, everybody. So that's exciting. Happy birthday to me. We had almost a week and a half of fating, which is how I like it, and went to fancy restaurants. So that was cool. So that was fun. You can wish me a happy birthday if you're out there, because as far as I'm concerned, it's birthday month and it's still my birthday. So fate me. But if no one has any questions, I can say, hey, if you are a stranger to these pods and you would like to see more of these live streams, connect with me on LinkedIn. That's where connect with me on LinkedIn. The live stream goes up every Tuesday on LinkedIn and also on Facebook and on the YouTubes. But LinkedIn is the place where I interact and answer questions from people who don't know me. I think the Facebook is pretty much people who do know me that I'm friends with there. So check it out. Come see me. Come say hi, wave. And I look forward to seeing you next time. I'm going to end the stream. Everyone, I have one last slide. That's my website. Have a pleasant